we've talked a bunch in the last couple of weeks with the work that Spider and I are doing, with you, and with our meeting a couple of weeks ago, the primary aim thing, and how unclear a lot of people are, or sometimes how deluded they are, about what's possible or what's real. And in my work, when I think about what I'm really doing, the outcome, it's to bring someone across the line from being in the record to being finished with the record. That's the that's the job.
Yeah.
Is it, I can change things are still open, this is still a work in process, and now we're done. That feeling of like, we're done and we're going to push it into the world. That's like my gig.
Yeah, pretty inspiring weekend. Kind of reinvigorated the creative juices after being a little bit on a creative lull, and not with output necessarily, but more with how I was feeling going into COVID mixing, and just like, what's the point, kind of, and then having to kind of force enthusiasm specifically for people that I was super excited to work on at the time, and it was difficult, but I feel like a switch flipped and feel back to my normal creative self, and it felt like a switch, almost like I was waiting for something that I didn't know what would cause it to flip that switch. And
you're talking about a sort of a 6-month COVID funk that's flipped, or
however long it's been,
right?
Right from the beginning, and we would work on projects and songs and be like, well, I love this song, but like, who's listening? Yeah, what's the audience? And
you felt that stuff wasn't landing, or there wasn't
well, I know it wasn't landing. I mean, I had records come out with huge artists that when I look at now on the album, there's 2 million streams on the song that I know they're capable of getting 60 plus million on their album records, let alone their singles having maybe 60 million instead of 250 million. I did the due diligence, and I looked into these numbers, and man, COVID really hurt a lot of artists, and the ones that I worked on that are, that stream hundreds of millions of times did not.
Yeah, early on, we had 2 on our Google Hang that we had with the Conversations crew. Whatever, how many people do we have? Like 20 people. Yeah. And I made 2 predictions that were wildly off base. And again, I just want to revisit them. One was that that streaming would be up. I didn't really say that one so much, but definitely the general consensus was people are at home, streaming will be up. That hasn't proven to be true. And the second was that people would respond with good art. And basically that isn't true either.
Yeah. I think, okay, let me just unpack those 2 a little bit more, because I think streaming isn't necessarily up, but legacy streaming is up. Yeah. So Comfort Records and Catalog Records is up.
A lot of Pedro the Lion has been spun in my apartment. I'll say that.
And great art could be made, and we might not be witnessing its fruits yet. So we don't know that great art wasn't made. There's no way.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it was. But in terms of a creative response to
Renaissance
the moment, I don't think we've seen that. I mean, truly amazing records in the last 6 months.
I mean, I really like this Big Sean record, Phoebe Bridgers record. Yeah.
But those were all
made before COVID.
Yeah. Right. Fair enough. Well, yeah. So there was a switch flipped because I had a really wonderful conversation with a record maker at the executive level, and it was really interesting for me because I don't, at my position as a mix engineer and where I'm standing and the clientele that I have, I don't have, I talked to Spider about this over dinner 2 nights ago, but I don't really have that in my Rolodex. I don't have like executives calling me at where I'm at. I have high-level A&Rs and some, homies and producers, and I don't really have that top 5 kind of calling. And I did have this conversation with one of the executives, and I was inspired after the call because the vision was so
clear.
Clear on the tip of his tongue. It was so distilled before I got on the phone, so he knew exactly what to say. And I'm not used to that from executives or from A&Rs. I'm used to that from producers. I've been in the room with Spider. I've been in the room with Tyler Johnson, and on a stream with OG Volta, and profound moves are made that excite me, and I feel that, and I'm like, oh, that just changed the record, right? I've never had that from an A&R, honestly. A pivotal move, and the way he came into it, describing hey man, you made this a really dope fan record, it's hip, you made it more hip hop, it hits hard. I was thinking it needs to be this artist's crossover pop radio record. Jump in.
Without, saying who it is, or we're talking a major label executive.
Yes.
And
a CEO.
CEO. Why? So why were you talking to them? Like why?
Yeah.
Why isn't A&R handling this call?
Yeah. She was on the call as well, but he wanted to jump on.
Pet
so we
project.
had and I didn't know.
Okay.
So I got a note saying so-and-so wants the bass down a dB on this mix. And I thought so-and-so was the co-producer who I wasn't talking to, and I was talking to one producer, and I knew there was two. I thought maybe this guy was the other producer. And then A&R that I was talking to said, hey, so-and-so would like to get on a call with you tomorrow. And I was like, I got to go to, I'm going to Ojai tomorrow. I'm going to be out of town. I can't do that. And she writes back, no, the CEO of the record label would like, and I was like, well, I'm still going out of town, but can you do it before? And I said like before 11 p.m. because I'm leaving like at 12. I needed to pack or whatever.
Right. Yeah, 11 a.m. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we sorted out with the assistant. So it was about, he wanted to go over this mix. It's a pet project.
It's a very young artist. Yeah.
Very
First
young
record.
Yes. First
major.
Yes.
Yeah.
Major label pop version of what this artist does.
Right.
And so is putting his touch on it to make it cross over. And he acknowledged that you did what I guess anybody would have thought to do, which was mix it like the producer wanted it and make it hit hard, and it's a hip hop record. But I'd like two things done. I'd like you to lower the drums a dB and raise the vocal a dB. And my reaction was like, are you sure?
All of that talk about changing direction, and it's a dB in either direction on two subgroups.
Yes. Yeah. And it was profound to me because my gut reaction, I don't know if I said it out loud. I might have, but I heard myself say it out loud. I might have not, was no. Like, why would you want to lower the drums? I mean, this record hits hard, right? I think I said, are you sure? Or something like that. And he was like, yeah, let's try it. And we did it, and you have the latency of the Zoom call with listen to with audio movers going on in the background, so I'm as quiet as possible so it doesn't interfere with him, so we don't have to mute because I know he was interjecting with comments, and I'm like, I think this sounds kind of great. He goes, indulge me, one more dB down on the drums. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing?
I would never do that.
I would never do that was my reaction. I think I said that out loud, but I know I thought it like the whole time, but I wasn't resisting, right? That's the thing about Live with Matt Ride yesterday. I'm trying to mitigate resistance in the creative process at all times. This CEO calls you, whether you agree with this person or not, let's see it through, right? Let's just see their vision through.
I want to see it the way they see it.
Yes. And there's a save as, right? This is a new version. I can go back to whatever. You and I, Spider, we've done this in the room.
Yeah.
We've like, what if we had a bass sound like this? He called out, he's like, you went Nirvana on the bass, like it's super tight, but we need this bass to be a little more slick. And I was like, yeah, man, that was ingrained in the track itself. But I let's clean it up. Like, so at least he knows that we can meet. We kind of like keep meeting each other, and it felt really great. Drums down 2 dB. He's like, this is perfect. The hook is wild. Like, can we just listen from the top? I said, do you mind if I mute you? Because I want to crank it just to make sure, because I don't know what this sounds like. He's like, yeah, of course. So we mute each other. And I turn it up, and it hits the chorus. I look to the left, and I just see him like rock it out. And I'm like, oh shit, like this sounds crazy, right? Like it sounded so profoundly better. Like, for lack of better words, it was better. It was a better version of the record, and it was so clear. And I liked the way I had it, and so did the producer. I mean, I was getting fire emojis and, heart emojis sent to me all day from a 19-year-old producer.
That's how you quantify better.
Yeah. Exactly.
Turns out
heart count.
CEO fire is worth more than producer fire. Who knew?
Fire count.
Teenager fire.
So at the after we had that, we both went on. He's like, all right, cool. Like, now that we have that, let's try even lowering the snare by itself more. And we did that. Halfway through the chorus, I stop and I'm like, nah, that's not the right move. He goes, yeah, you're right. Totally. Like, trust you on that. Because the snare with the balance, I think, was right to the overall. So, and then we tried something else. And I remember saying, nah, I'm not feeling it. Him agreeing with me, and like, because I gave him that, like he also gave me, right? So that was, we were going back and forth for a bit, 20 minutes in the stream, and the song was done. It's sent to mastering, right? Like, it wasn't hard work, it was fun. But at the end of it, before I got to reflect on the inspiring part, he, not to like toot my own horn or anything, but the end of the story is that he questions what I've done for the label. Hasn't been much. It's been one really big artist, one song for them, and then one kind of like smaller artist that has some buzz, but whatever. So a disparity of level there. And he goes, yo, make sure that Jon's strapped across everything we do. You know, just like is going to give me the shot. And
not only give you the shot, invest in your development so he's got a solid ally to rely on in the mix process.
Maybe. I'm still a little cynical in my brain, so until I get another call from it.
But why else?
Yes.
Why else?
Yes.
Do it. You know?
Yes. Why else? And that was, you know, to be candid, it's just like I was going into that call thinking that this person was going to tell me they hate my mix and was going to hire someone else to do the mix.
A suit is going to reinvent your mix or whatever. Yeah.
And, you know, my manager, Nathaniel, and my girlfriend, Niku, were both like, why would an executive waste their time to call you to tell you they don't like? I was like, well, of course, that's how a normal person outside would hear it. But the self-deprecating creative type is like, fuck, they hate what I did. I was like, wait. Fuck.
He's coming here to diss me personally.
He's going to use this weekend to deliver bad news.
No, I mean, there's a realistic thought in my head. Part of it's realistic, which is, well, maybe we won't get it together. You know, maybe we'll try and we won't get it because maybe I'll resist the move. Maybe whatever the reason, there's a chance that we won't get it and they'll go elsewhere.
Sure.
And I am really excited about this new artist. But the inspiration came from kind of knowing that some people really do know how to make hits.
Yeah.
And I don't think like that on the regular because I just want to make good music, right? I don't think that a hit is only on the radio. I think if you got a couple 100 million streams on Spotify, like you got yourself a hit of sorts.
Right.
I don't think it's not a top 40 radio hit necessarily, but you and your producer, writer, collabs, whoever is doing it is like making money. You're doing all right. There's a level to that I would refer to as a hit because I've seen it. I've seen 300 million streams on a song, and it's a hit somewhere somehow, but it's not on the radio. You don't hear the song.
Of course, yeah.
But this man is, I mean, trying to make his bottom line and hold his company up. It's his job. It's like, no, I need this to be smash hit. And I'm hearing it, I know how to get it there across the line with words. I'm not in the room with you, and I can do it, and I can express a vision, and then we can get there together, hopefully. And that was inspiring to me. And
very.
It's just a senior level exchange.
For the people listening at home, I love the fact that I don't know who the artist or the dude is. Like we didn't talk about this before the
I love that
podcast.
I do because we had dinner on
exactly.
But it's really fun. I'm hearing it the same way you're hearing it, whoever you are.
Yeah, I mean, there's no point. I mean, the names of the people don't even matter.
No,
it's not relevant.
It's not relevant at all.
Because people will have mixed feelings on this human, because I know a few people that work with this person regularly, and they have mixed feelings. I had a great interaction with this person.
If you're doing real shit in the world, there's lots of people who don't like you.
Exactly.
That's easy. Anyone who's doing real shit.
I'm curious, because you just said people have mixed feelings. So what made it go right in your opinion? Like,
man, I respect so deeply the art of finishing a record. Right? The finishing. I mean, I want to be a finisher. Like I am a finisher to a degree. I consider myself that more than I do a mix engineer. So if there was a credit for the Grammys of finisher, I would try to be that person. And you're always thinking of the audience at hand, right? You have to be. And they at that level are doing it at the highest level. I mean, a lot of things come to mind. The finishing, the fact that, I mean, you're inspired by the fact that the amount of giant records this man has touched. You know the credits. I mean, I Googled, I know who this person is. Everybody knows his name if you were to say it on, and you're just kind of struck by awe about how he's still relevant. And it's because of decisions like this. And
I love that. I love the idea that there's daylight between someone who's really good at what they do, you who has really good taste, really good intuition for music, and someone who can smell a hit. Yeah. Like
I want to work with those people.
So like who are these people in Clive Davis or Jimmy Iovine or whatever, these people historically who are kind of, Amit
They're like finding truffles.
Yeah, there's a sixth sense for it isn't like there's been 70 records that have gone in this genre with this style of vocal, so we're going to do the 71st. It's like someone who can sense the zeitgeist or whatever. That sort of intuition.
This record is really different than anything that's being made right now.
And to you, the fact that he hears this artist must be a bridge between you guys. It's like this CEO hears what a teenager is doing in music and is fighting to bring it to market.
Yes.
And to have that artist be known in this authentic way. And to me, that's the heart of what a record company should be doing.
Exactly.
Is bringing it to market. That's their domain, is the marketplace.
So harvesting the stuff that bubbles up through the system, the acts that have been signed, finding the stuff, putting the right people in the room, building the teams, unlocking the budgets, and then picking the stuff that will go, which isn't always immediately obvious.
No.
As opposed to reacting to demand, like, we're on artist X 7th record, more of the same, please. Usual suspect producer, usual suspect writers, mixers.
Yeah,
someone who's actually leading, who's actually changing the culture.
Yeah,
at a boardroom level, as opposed to, we like to think of the artist or the songwriter being the one who's the agitator.
Yeah,
but to think of a corporate agitator, it's a little.
I love those.
I
love that idea.
Been there. Corporate agitator. I love
it's interesting because
corporate agitator.
in the music business we work in, it's a trope to think of I use the word suit.
Yeah.
Like it's a cynical, disparaging way of describing someone who works in the tower.
Dude was not in a suit when he got on Zoom, and is
Yeah, of course not. He's a I've met some of these people, and they're fascinating.
He's also like Spider's age. He's your age. I mean, he's not he's not an old person.
Yeah.
Hey,
look, even if he were, and you had that same conversation, I don't think if he was 70 years old, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be any different.
If he's got the nose, he's got the nose.
That's it.
Or she. I think that's a really. I get why it's inspiring.
But I want to hear. I want to hear music like that. I don't only want to work on songs that can be massive hits. Like, that's just not where my head is at. It might be for some people. For me, I want to make obscure jazz records too. Like, I want to do ambient.
But your job is the job you do, which is we were describing it to our client today. Like, your job is to hear the music and know what it could be, bring it there, finish it. And if it's a hit, it's a hit. It's out of your hands at that point. Your job is to do you.
Today was a great day. This has been fueling the past 3 days of mixing. I mixed 7 or 8 songs in the past 3 days, and they've all gone so fast because I'm just, this is what I want it to sound like. Whatever it is. What?
This just goes to the power of collaboration.
Yeah.
It's like you collaborated on the finishing of this record, and look how energized you are.
So energized, man. And energized to push things to where they could be.
Yeah.
Not how they are, and a little bit better.
In a way you didn't envision.
Yeah.
Right? You heard and felt the record a different way, your intuition, and that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
As a mixer. And here comes someone who hears it a little differently.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, that's better.
But also what we talked about at dinner was, because you asked this question, you were like, nothing else changed besides those dB volume moves, right? Like, there was no EQ differences. He didn't ask for anything brighter.
They're very simple moves.
Just simple moves, just balances of overall genre. And I thought that was
energy,
more inspiring.
Emphasis. It's like, what's leading this record?
Yeah.
Is it drums or vocals?
It's very interesting to me because I'm thinking of people that I know, mixers that I know, A, B, and C-list mixers.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of people who I guarantee you would have fucked that call, who would have just fought and also people who sometimes I scratch my head and look at people whose output I'm like, I don't get it sonically or whatever. I don't get it. Someone who's consistently making records that I think sound or feel bad or wrong or weird or whatever. And I'm wondering if maybe they're just Jedis at that call. Maybe they're great collaborators and they're enabling people to bring hits across the line.
Yeah.
And of course they're not sweating what some dude thinks of the vocal or the snare, but they have an in on that process of collaborating at the label level or the I mean, clearly, like good relationships, A&R counts for a lot.
Yeah.
And there's certainly, I have people in my mind when I'm saying this who, I scan their output and I'm just like, I can't.
I know.
The whole thing I can't. But in conversation with them, it's I'm hearing the names that are dropped and the dude here and the lady here, and it's like, oh, they're tight with players.
Yeah.
And in my mind, historically, that's a kind of I note that dismissively.
Yeah.
But the way you're saying it, it's like, oh, maybe there's
you want the influence of the best collaborators you can.
That's the gig.
You can
it's part of the gig.
be with.
Yeah.
I think
that's how you grow.
I think something you were saying without stating it is something I said probably early on in the podcast, or maybe just at this table. But this idea of aligning on outcomes and like how that concept aligns teams, or groups of people, or just two people on what they're trying to do and the outcomes can be from multiple different parts of the process. But for this, it's talking more about the output, the actual thing that both of you are really trying to achieve. Like, you're not trying to make the greatest mix. You're trying to make a mix that resonates with the person that's listening, and he's trying to make a song and release, or they're trying to make a song. This anonymous person, I can't wait to find out who it is, is trying to make a song that's going to resonate with an audience. That's the outcome you're aligned on.
Yep.
And then everything else is just in the way of that. And so the more friction you create on the path of doing that real core outcome, you're potentially ruining the outcome. You know what I mean?
This is a transition.
Yeah, you could be ruining the scale at which this could exist.
Making a better mix I'm waving my fingers here, air quote style. It's a better mix. We'd all agree it's better, but it doesn't achieve the outcome.
And they might not agree it's better because they're like, well, I thought this is the outcome that we're driving towards.
Vocal up is the
dude. This is a better mix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the final outcome is a better mix
for the audience and for
the
song
record.
Too. Yeah, exactly.
Also, just kind of to even close a loop on my perspective on this, just so the story can end with full honesty. Everything I said to you all at this, I said to him on the call.
Of course.
I thanked him for the inspiration. And I explained after we were done what that meant to me to get a chance to do that with someone. I didn't say like at your level or whatever, but to do that with someone.
At that quality.
Yes, at that quality. It's since COVID, because we're not in the room with a lot of people. And I've had a couple of experiences similar over streams where I'm like, oh, I would never even thought to do that. Like, when Volta hits me with I might be crazy, but like, let's try this thing. And I'm like, oh shit, that's not, we've had a couple of those moments. This was different. And I let him know, because I'm still jazzed, if you can't tell about it.
It wasn't like, let's do the thing you're doing and take it 10% further. It was like, let's do the thing you would never do.
Yes.
It's like, wait, what? It was like a left.
Drums down?
Dude, 2 dB from where I had them, and they were hitting. The funny thing is, maybe the drums were too loud. Like, they're still hitting.
Of course, yeah.
It's crazy.
2 dB on drums, it's not that much.
That's a lot when you're hitting the limiter. I don't know. To me, that's a lot. Really?
For drums.
Like, kick down 2 dB to me is dramatic.
Compared to guitars.
How I line up my gain staging and stuff, like, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Well, because the whole mix bus of affect changes. Which in this case was magical. It could have fallen apart, but in this case, it got more expansive, taller, wider, deeper, and the kicks still hit right behind the vocal. I was afraid it was just going to fall apart because of how tight I am on my gain structure. Just like every 0.1 kind of matters. And I don't really do 0.1s because I like round numbers, but shouldn't say that.
Secrets.
Edit that out.
Mixed secrets.
Dude,
this is a very this is a beautiful snapshot of the moment, and you kind of, now you're riding a wave, this joy of like a very powerful collaboration.
Yeah.
But if we rewind back to when we met in like 9 years ago in the studio, like, resistance in the process was something that we were just starting to pay attention to then.
Yeah.
And it's something you've been working on this entire time.
Yeah.
So I want to draw attention to, Michael's thing about luck and preparation, meeting the opportunity. So the opportunity comes, and you are not only have meditated for hours and hours and hours on self-awareness, and to be able to understand and recognize the various kinds of resistance in the process and to protect the process from them in that moment. I just want to draw attention to how much work,
so much work
went into that preparation
and went into a successful call that could have gone any other way.
Be career defining. We don't know
right
how
exactly.
where this is going to go.
Yeah,
I want to pick up my pitchfork and stick it in the business phrase aligning on outcomes, because at the first time we did that, whenever that was,
let's go.
Number 2.
This wouldn't be the first time.
I don't connect shockingly with the very businessy sounding phrase align on outcomes.
But you like common projects.
I do. So I'm trying to.
Is it the alignment or the outcome part you don't like?
Outcome. I don't think I like the word outcome. It sounds very clinical.
Align on the song.
Hold on, I'm with you, Roy, on all these things. An outcome is an outcome.
No, like
what else could it have been?
He doesn't like the align. John doesn't like the align part. You don't like the outcome part. Is that where we're at?
No,
right now?
I love being aligned.
I want to think that someone who's listening to the podcast will be stuck in an elevator with a buddy tomorrow. Say, I listened to a podcast line. It was good. What was it about? Well, the thing that hit me was, but we've got 25 seconds left.
Yeah.
And when they say align on outcome, the guy kind of furrows his brow and the door's open and it's like it hasn't hit. So what is the...
Let's grit it up a little bit. Let's make it cool for the kids.
What is a way of... what you're doing is... It's another version of this, the dude who wants to buy
it's shared vision.
A hook for the wall. It's like he's not looking for the hook, he's looking for a painting to be hung. And he's not looking for the painting to be hung, he's looking to make his wife happy and on and on. The ultimate outcome is he's looking to build a home or whatever, right? So you're talking about a way of looking at your work where the details are yours. You can fuss over the details. But in communication with others, you're looking to the end, to the end of the line. So you're saying, okay, I'm gonna sit in this seat, B7 or 7B, right, for the flight. I'm going to eat these pretzels, and all the person cares is that you get to Paris.
Yeah, it's expectations
it's
and the commitments.
The outcome for them. Yeah. They don't need to know the details, or they're not attached to what you eat or which seat you take.
Or both,
Or they don't care, and it doesn't matter to them. And you being defensive about it, all they care about. So it's like I'm trying to get to a place of like, how can someone implement this tomorrow?
Yeah.
So they're not John. They're not going to talk to a CEO. What does it mean?
Yeah. One thing that came to mind is there's sort of two views of a project, right? And the project is the thing that has an outcome, right? Or an impact, an impact on the world, right?
Yes.
I mean, and so these projects we're talking about are songs, music, records, albums, both, either. And there's two views of any project. There's the view of the technician, the person that's doing the work, hitting the knobs, doing the thing. And there's all sorts of information and knowledge that you need for that. And then there's the view of like the highest level of that project, like zoomed in and zoomed out views.
Marketplace.
And every person, I mean, I don't want to be prescriptive. People should nurture both of those views in what they're doing, or could nurture both of those views, and it would help in conversation with other people who might not have the same view as you. So for example, if I'm only zoomed in all the time, as soon as I talk to someone who's zoomed out, we're already kind of looking at things differently. And so it could cause friction or it could really help you.
You could be talking past each other.
Yeah. And so I think the aligning on outcomes is being able to zoom to whatever level the other person's at. And most likely on the outcome is the highest level you could zoom out of a project and saying what really matters here.
It's a kind of empathy.
Yeah. An empathy for the project and the people that are listening to it and receiving that project. It's like, with design, I could talk about the color red for hours and hours and hours and debate why that red is the best one or whatever, or think about the person that's going to see it and whether it's the best thing for them with the people that are involved. Because people involved might not know anything about color theory or care. And it's not necessarily always the point of the technical person to make them care.
Yes.
What's important is caring about how it's going to impact the world.
How it's going to land, yeah.
If you're not aligned there, as in you don't agree that what is made is going to have that impact, that's what you should be talking about. And then as the technician, figuring out how you can change or adjust your thing to make that outcome achievable.
Yeah.
Or maybe you weren't viewing the outcome the same as that other person.
Yeah, there's that.
And that's what I mean.
Too.
It's aligning there. Like, where are we trying to go on this trip, right?
I mean,
if you're both steering a car.
We should go to Paris if we're going to go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so it's finding that alignment with the people that are involved in the project. They're the zoomed in or out level and communicating about the impact. Is important.
It's leadership.
Does that make you feel more comfortable with that term, though?
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand the concept. I'm looking for an emotional hook because, and
that's Spider's role.
That's trying to get in
fundamentally, also being triggered by terms like this. In that conversation, we were communicating properly, right? Mm-hmm. And we aligned on what the outcome should be for the longevity and the best chance this song has to win and last.
It seems like CEO, this CEO started the conversation by aligning it.
Yes.
Yeah. By aligning, he's like, let's get on the same page about how big this hit can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he suggested the moves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also that on a smaller level, because you're talking about the person that is not me in this, is, okay, well, who are you collaborating with?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Who are you talking with?
That's kind of the hook
I'm looking for.
Align
with?
Who are you looking to align with? Yeah. It seemed, this is one I have like very little friction with, because like, you should align on what you want the outcome to be.
Yeah.
Emotionally, what's the emotional hook to that? Do what you both feel is right. Are we bringing feelings into this? Like when you talk emotionally and you're bringing feelings involved, and
when you're saying both feel is right, what if you both feel differently? That's that alignment part.
Yeah. No, I get it.
How do feelings play in the common vision space? Like if we're at a table and we say, let's go camping, and one of us has an idea that we're gonna hike 10 miles a day and backpack ultra lightweight, and somebody else is thinking, I'm going to bring all my cast iron and we're going to rock up the SUVs, and like
he's looking at me.
Now you have, I'm looking across the table, just
and then someone says,
well,
do we all want to hang out as a group and get to know each other better? We just met, and we're like, yeah. It's like, well, what is the best way for us to do that?
Yeah.
And maybe it's neither of those things, or maybe it's one of those things.
But you need to converge on one version of that camping trip, or else everybody just does their own.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean, like the outcome, that primary aim thing, that sort of that thing is like, what are we really trying to do? Like, we're trying to impact this demographic with this music, or bring them to pop radio. Like, okay, cool. That now we have something to really make moves to achieve.
It's interesting because it kind of, it brings to mind how sort of, we've talked a bunch in the last couple of weeks with the work that Spider and I are doing with you, and we had our meeting a couple of weeks ago, the primary aim thing, and how unclear a lot of people are, or sometimes how deluded they are, about what's possible or what's real. And I think about, like in my work, I when I think about the what I'm really doing, the outcome, it's to bring someone across the line of like, this is really the only thing I'm doing, is to bring them across the line from being in the record to being finished with the record. That's the that's the job.
Yeah.
Is it, I can change things are still open, this is still a work in process, and now we're done. That feeling of like, we're done and we're going to push it into the world. That's like my gig, and other stuff is details.
Well, that's in a way that's the function you serve, but your outcome is still the same outcome as Jon, and the same outcome as the producer, and the same outcome as the engineer, which is that impact on whoever is hearing it or whoever they want to hear it.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's
and that's the two zooms though. Like your primary function is that's zoomed in, and then zoomed out is so that people can hear this song and feel it.
Yeah.
I would wonder how often, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd love for Dale Becker and other people to chime in on this as well. How many executives are calling the mastering engineer to take it over the edge versus the mixer, because we just have more control, right?
Way more control.
So you can do broader stroke energy moves and shifts
as you go up through the business. That stuff is locked in earlier and earlier.
Yes.
So on a if we take the top 1% of projects, the mixer has way less control than they do lower down in the
I'm
business.
not changing the bass sound.
Yeah, they're
dramatically.
Good producers and writers have made good choices with a good artist, and the mixer is, shaping, nuancing, framing, but they're not reinventing. And the mastering guy or girl is doing even less.
Yes.
Sort of lower down in the business where I'm working, there's more expectation, realistic or unrealistic, and there's more possibility.
Thanks for that caveat.
more possibility for change and opportunity to add something or bring out something or enhance or whatever.
Yo, mastering engineer, can you raise the snare 6 dB? No, I can't. I've heard that though.
I had that during the week with a young artist, and the producer just chimed in and was like, "This is not where we do this."
Yeah,
that ship has sailed. Yeah, he did great. He's listening, Joey.
And y'all get your notes together before you send them.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing what you're saying that Michael pushed back on as kind of the correct thing. Like, we've all been aligned to a certain point, and when you get it to the mastering engineer, wrap that shit up, tighten that bow, tighten up. We all love it where it's at. Tighten it up, shine it up, do whatever it takes so we all know it's done, because we don't know it's done yet.
The feeling of being done.
The feeling of being done kind of is the role. I thought that was my role, but it's not. It's the mastering engineer's role.
More at my level, I think. But it's when I think of outcomes, because often when I get beyond that, it's like it's stuff that I don't have control of,
That's kind of what I mean.
It's kind of like the levers that are available to me.
It seems like it's a shared, this saying it's done thing seems like it's functionally shared between mix engineer and mastering engineer.
It can be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, if we zoom out on what mixing is, I think on Matt Rad, you were talking about trying to explain what mixing is, like trying to get parents to understand what you're doing all day, like for a living.
Sometimes
a parent's guide to mix engineering.
Yeah. Well, parents are just concerned. They want their kids to do well and be happy and all that.
That's
right?
where this stemmed from. Yeah.
You don't quite understand like what this all is. But if you zoom out, there's like, well, do you put reverb on the vocal, like you were saying?
Yeah.
It's like, well, sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you turn the bass up? Sometimes. It's like a lot of sometimes. But the thing you always do is tell people it's mixed.
Right.
You send it, you're like, this song's mixed now.
Yeah. Right. That's interesting. Yeah.
So every time you're saying it's done.
Even every improg, you consider it could be done.
Yeah,
that's getting to the heart
you don't send it until
that's getting to the heart
signal.
of what I'm
primary
thinking.
function is like added levels of certainty as things go on. It's like Jon saw it and did something, even if he changed like one thing. It's like he said that was that. This is it. It's like, okay, well,
that was enough.
It sounds good to me.
He blew Tarragon smoke on it. And fucking danced in a circle, and now it's done.
Damn, that's what was missing from this
and it adds
dinner
some
tonight.
Certainty.
Oh, Tarragon
the
smoke.
Dancer.
But that's I've never really thought of that. I'm pretty into collaboration, so sometimes I'll send an improg. Depending on the producer or team, I'm expecting notes, right? I'm like, this is where I think it's at. Let's get some feedback. I might even call it rough and send it out. I might offer a stream link right away on Audio Movers to do it before I even do a bounce. Do you even like this vibe? What do you think? So I'm not always thinking it's done, but it's pretty clear that it's close to done.
It's about to be.
It's about to be.
We're aligned on getting it done.
I like this conversation. I like just to kind of distilling down like what our function is at the different engineer. I don't really know sometimes.
That's what I was driving at clumsily earlier, is that I know people who I don't think are very good mixers, whose work does not sound good consistently on a variety of systems, who must be good at this because they're crushing in the business, right? They're doing, and it's not a taste thing, it's like subjectively, like not even kind of objectively, their work sounds worse than other people.
Yeah.
But they're obviously doing some things well, and this might be one of them.
Right.
And this is there's an insight there. There's something interesting for me,
Yeah. I want to be good at all of it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But fundamentally, I want to be a good collaborator, and I want people to want, like all of us at this table. I mean, Michael came over just for an espresso the other day, and loves designing in front of the client, in front of someone, just having that real-time feedback. I mean, we don't get that in COVID right now unless it's Spider and Michael designing something together for PMC because they're locked in together. I don't have that feedback, and that's why I'm like, yo, you guys want to stream? Like, let's just get on. Like, hear my move real time. Like, maybe if you hear it real time, you'll go further. And that's what I did with Dude on Zoom. It's like, all right, well, now that we got it here, like let's try it. He might not even have said, let's try that third or fourth idea if we weren't live on it. He'd be like, oh, sounds great now. Let's call it. You know, this is great. Drums down, vocal up. We're experimenting.
Last week when we started going live with recording the podcast, like it put energy into the system for us to be on air, to know that there's 5, 10, 15, 20 people listening right now.
More than that.
Live, it adds something and there's stakes and it focuses the mind and it's exciting.
Yeah. It reminds me of a conversation I had today and the other day and the day before that about how as humans we've sort of, and this comes from the book Sapiens, and just sort of reading that and reflecting on
Yuval Noah Harari.
Shout out to my boy,
boss man.
If you're listening, good hang.
Check
the other day.
YouTube channel, his episodes on the Sam Harris.
He makes
podcast.
a mean paella. Thanks.
He does, great hang.
If you want to weigh in, Sam Harris and Yuval, Google that and find the first episode.
Start there.
Crazy.
Listen to Sapiens, read Sapiens. But one thing I took away from it was how, you know, we've went from this society, this tribal society, to one that is super individualized. And I don't think that's like the main point of the book by any means, but it was something I took away and I've been thinking about a lot.
It is.
It's
the history of mankind.
True.
That's exactly
well, here we are,
what it is.
and we're super individualized, and yet, like, we have this desperate need to, like, often, you know, seek approval of others or connect with others or all of the above and everything in between, right? And it's like, well, why? So most of the time these people are like alone so often that like any person is important because we don't have many people, you know what I mean? And we definitely don't have a quote unquote tribe of people that we can go to and reflect. And I mean, it just has me thinking of the importance of it. I was just speaking with a copywriter about this same thing and about creativity and creative depression and all these things. And it's like, well, a lot of times creatives are so isolated, I find, and everyone I've spoken to, and it's like, that's why I started Art Club. That's why we have this, and the utility of this is unbelievable. Just getting that human feedback loop.
The utility of this, our podcast?
Of our friendship.
It started
It
started as the community night at at the gift shop right up here. I mean, that's why we did it. I mean, engineers specifically are isolated more than other in the audio industry. Also, this on the flip side of that, there's this again, Yuval and the narrative conversation and all these narratives we tell each other ourselves. We've been told historically. I mean, there's an alluring romance to the isolated suffering artist that perpetuates, you know, through the culture. I mean, I feel it. I love being alone up here mixing. So I'm hitting both sides of it. I say I like the collab, but I also love being alone, and I'm highly introverted. So but you start understanding that the majority of projects that are super successful in all disciplines of art, all mediums, are mostly team efforts. It's very rare you see something that comes out and one person did it. I didn't even know this about massive sculpture artists. I wish I could name a few because I don't really know this world, but there's teams behind all these massive famous sculptors. Like, okay. And this stuff goes unnoticed because that sculptor is the one at the opening on the gallery, you know, they're the visionary.
They're at a strategic
Jeff Koons
level.
or a Damien Hirst or whatever.
Exactly.
We've talked some about this, but my perspective at the table is a little different because I come from Europe, from Ireland, and it's different there. You know, it is closer to the old model of a little bit more tribal, a little bit more social cohesion, with all of the downsides. There's more constraint, there's more conformity, there's more pressure to not be an outlier. And this is one of the great sort of
sounds great
moment, or the great sort of defining characteristics of America, of the U.S. project, and its strength and its weakness all at once. And, you know,
the hyper-individualism
individualized
of America.
people who are atomized are easier to sell to, easier to manipulate, and
radicalize.
They're more vulnerable to the sort of machinations of whoever. And we had an amazing meeting this morning with an unfucked client. Shout out to Graham, because I think he's on the live stream. Yeah, and just, the over and over, we sort of circled back to the power of finding your cohort. And there was, early on in our conversation, we're talking about, you know, moving through our process. And immediately, Graham talked about a friend of his, a homie, and it was like immediately obvious that he was to Graham what you guys are to us, like this sort of ally, this agitator, this someone who questions and who supports, and
the ongoing workshop of each other.
That feedback loop.
The feedback loop.
And committed, like verbalized, not just kind of like a bro who kind of sometimes raises an eyebrow or whatever, like someone who they're in it together, and even though they're not exactly the same dude, they're not just shared. It's not that they're like everything the same or whatever. But the power of that is really evident, and it's sort of out of fashion. And if we do one thing with this podcast, I know we're not into like prescribing, you know, but consider the idea that building a group of homies and committing to their development.
Are these partners quality enough to commit at that level to, right? It makes you take your decisions seriously. You know, I like that. I like that pressure of raising the stakes. Like, we're all going to go in together.
And they don't need to be 10 out of 10 at the moment if you can't find it. I mean, like, it can take time. Related to this, and related to sort of this tribal lifestyle versus hyper-individualized lifestyle, I think what's interesting about what we're doing is this fusion of these two worlds. We have this... I hate referring to this as like a tribal group, but we have this tribe, quote unquote.
Just placeholder the
within
word.
it, this quote unquote tribe. But all of us are completely different and individualized in our own ways, and obviously there's similarities and there's common ground.
We have the same
with
amount of chromosomes.
The four of us here at the table.
Yeah.
There's a lot of common ground.
We're not quite a tribe. We're a band of brothers. Not quite a tribe.
You're looking for that thing in a band where people are different enough to spark off each other and for there to be creative kind of conflict, positive conflict, and the same enough that you can cohere into a unit that actually gets on stage sometimes.
I find it to be exactly like being in a band.
Yeah. It's not for dudes who agree on everything.
Right.
And it's not for dudes who like each other. It's, you're looking for something different to that. I'm looking, we talked today with Graham about leaning into the kind of discomfort of being challenged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Particularly around you and me, and like your confidence and my lack of it, and sort of like how the inclination is to I'm sorry, I'm pointing at John, listeners, and I'm finger gesturing
so much
at John.
eye contact right now.
But yeah, it's hard. We forget that we're not, you know, the
on
people
video,
can't see. But you know, and you've been very clear that it's something you've worked on, and for me, it made me uncomfortable because it sort of. As I was talking to my daughter this week, they're away, and I was talking to her on FaceTime about her attention, and like that it's a flashlight. You know, it shines. You choose where you point it, right? And you can point it at the person who's annoying you, or
Rory to be my dad.
The thing that's great in your life, you know. And we had some great calls this week.
I love you, but
and
Sam, Dad.
But it
my other dad.
It shines the flashlight on my sort of discomfort, or the weird sort of asynchronous thing that happens with me where I'm super confident in certain lanes and in other lanes very lacking confidence. And so the intuition is to move away from your confidence, and the thing that works is to lean into it, to be around it, to get uncomfortable and closer to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's been great. So this thing of finding your cohort is not to find 4 people that you're comfortable with, 3 people that you're comfortable with, and sort of bro up and drink beer and everything's going to be great. And tell each other how awesome you are. It's for me at least, that's not been useful. Even though I have old friends that it's a different thing.
It's a totally different, it serves a completely different function. It's not necessarily a growth one. It's more like a maybe joy and relaxing sort of thing.
Yes.
And there's the function there for just friends that you could bro out with.
That's more of a tribe. That's kind of...
Or gal out with. What's a gender neutral
Think about
word
that.
for broing
When
out?
I say guys and then you have to say gal next.
Guys
like why is everyone dressed in gingham? Like gal. Like what is that about?
I don't know.
But guys is pretty gender neutral.
Yeah, it is, I think. Yeah.
That's how we talk.
I mean,
I
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Come on, guys.
Hang out.
Yeah.
Let's go, guys.
I wanted to go back to to something about the radicalization of and the potential for radicalization and kind of the buy this Waves plugin bundle and you'll succeed, and kind of back to that mentality. And we've all been there where that's all these ideas are being prescribed to us and that this is going to solve the thing all the time. This is like a one size fits all package, this bundle. And I kind of wish I heard more about the cohort building collab versus the which de-esser is best for the vocal. Because even today, I just love using real time examples. This morning there was a de-esser that was already on the session, and it was some de-esser I would never use. It was like the Waves R de-esser, and I had a spite for Waves because I've uninstalled most of their plugins. I would just usually take it off, but I left it because it wasn't doing any harm to the vocal. Just like left it on. But that's not the point. The point is any de-esser can serve the purpose of a de-esser. Not any collaborator can serve the purpose of the right collaborator.
Oh man,
right?
That's a whole other level. It really is.
Yeah, but that's what we're getting at. That's what we're trying to drill. That's what we've done. That's what we've done. Rory's different in this conversation with me because like you don't master my records. I've developed a relationship with Dale Becker and I've just been working with him forever. But yesterday I sent you a record that I just thought you'd want to hear. I'm like looking for feedback. I'm like, how do I engage Rory on a musical level, like kind of outside of this? Like, we listen to records up here on the podcast nights, and you've helped so much sonically in my life, but it's different than just like, hey, what do you think of this? And I'm trying to find ways actively. That's why I kind of did that last night. And we've all kind of realized that of each other, that we have ears, we have eyes, we have the sense of smell when you come up. What are you cooking? Oh, is that tarragon? Is that whatever? Like we're all connected on our senses in so many ways, whether we agree or disagree on topics. We're aligned on that, and that didn't happen by chance. That happened by trial. That happened by investing. And you can invest in a plugin bundle all you want. It's never going to answer the problem. Just never.
I think
Sorry.
What's interesting in this situation is that for me, it was the bridge was Spider to, knew you guys, didn't know you, Michael, very much. Had met you.
You knew the legend, though.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, I've, I read the newspaper.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, you've heard.
I check into Yahoo's homepage.
I've been on
Michel Morgan.
Michel Morgan. But for me, it was like you and I, Spider, and then sort of the relationship with the guys sort of deepened through that. So maybe, I don't know. All I would say is consider to people, just to consider that who you surround yourself with and what you're doing.
It's connected to last week. Like, think about it's hard to say, well, how do I know if they're the right person or they seem cool? One way of evaluating is what kind of questions do they ask you? And not every day, all the time, but do they question anything you do, and how do they question, and what are they questioning, and then what are they questioning of you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
It's a gauge. We talked about questioning last time, and the questions you ask yourself, and a few people wrote into the Convos DM about that. But it's important, I think, like thinking about how
the quality of the questions.
Your group,
your crew, your band,
your band is investigating the world.
Or investigating, like how engaged are they really with what you're doing?
What you're doing, what they're doing, and what the world's doing, you know? And I don't know, it's a gauge. I don't know how you find the perfect group.
I'm interested in what each one of you are doing individually. Like creatively, business-wise, health-wise.
Yes.
Right? It's just a kind of respect and admiration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I'm able to trust you guys, right? It's I'm today when we were talking about at lunch with Graham, we were talking about this idea of what if you actually game out what it would be like if there's some younger person who's listening who, you know, knows that what they want to do, like they want to be an engineer, they want to mix, and they're around people, they're surrounded by people who are letting them down, or they're just not demonstrating the kind of qualities that are feeding and nurturing this person. Like, what does it look like to transition to having better influences, more productive relationships, higher quality interactions? And you have to think it involves some loneliness, because you're going to break ties in some way to make room for new people. And we were talking about the courage that it takes to be thoughtful and discerning in your decisions about who you allow to influence you. Right? And if you think about the power of influence, and you just think of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and the quality of those influences, right? I think a lot of us have guilt around the notion of forming strategic alliances with people, that our friendship should be strategic in some way, that they should be tied to personal gain. And I'm at the point in my life where I'm saying it's irresponsible not to think that way in terms of mutual benefit and investment and building things and making the world better for the next generation.
Yeah.
You know,
we talked a little at lunch about, you know, if you're religious, there's a much simpler and sort of more beautiful. I'm not, and Spider isn't, so this is easy for us to talk about. But if you're religious, there's a lovely sort of conception often of the idea that God gave you talents and you have an obligation to realize them. You know, God gave you this gift of music, so you should show up and use it to, you know, it's in God's plan, whatever, you know. And I like the idea that you have an obligation to realize yourself.
Yes.
And as a parent, I feel it's one of the most profound aspects of having a kid is the idea that you can tell them anything you want. You should do this, you shouldn't do this, you should smoke, you shouldn't. All they're going to do is follow what you model, and sort of within the constraints of their genetics, right? And with 2 adopted kids, the genetics are a fucking wild card, you know, which is, you know, it is what it is, right? But so what's the model when you don't have a God framework, right? This sort of sense of an obligation, a will, a drive to realize your own potential. And we talked last week, 2 weeks ago, about sort of that weird asynchrony again between like this crazy drive I have to realize my potential and a lack of confidence in certain areas, and the sort of misalignment and the discomfort and the sort of self-sabotage that causes, you know?
Yeah.
I was struck when you talk about, because I was struck at it at lunch today about the idea of sort of moving away from people. It doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to gun them down, like, you know, but moving away from people who are not good for you.
I think we could be prescriptive and say, do not.
Don't shoot anyone. And moving towards people. You know, but in my life, I've been both. I've been the person who did move away from people, who didn't and should have. And I've also been the person who other people should have moved away from. And it's very uncomfortable. I'm thinking about like being in college and having a close friend who like sort of arrived at the music, at playing way later than the rest of us. So we all got into it at 14, 15. And this guy like showed up at like 19, 20 and started picking up guitar. And I wasn't, because of my own like ego and insecurity and being like the guy in the band who's got the ear and whatever, I didn't show up for him and like lift him up. I didn't like sabotage him, but I definitely didn't help him. And I often think of it as like a really small moment in my life of like where I was the guy that he should have, we're still friends, he's still a close friend, but he never did music, and he could have and should have probably, but I was the guy he should have gotten away from. You know, he needed another band, he needed and I think of like bandmates of mine at that age, it's like I was a bad bandmate. Like I was really not someone who raised up other people, you know, and
there's probably a lot of other qualities of you then that was hard to push away from, though, I would imagine.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, before Father Ruairi?
Not much before, actually, but that's another story.
But was it before you embodied the father persona?
Is that my persona now?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Really?
Father Ruairi.
Time doing X is time away from my kids. If that sentence is said every time that I see you, it's,
Father John Ruairi.
It's beautiful.
No, and actually, Rory, when we're out on doing unfucked meetings, you have a mode.
I know. I've tried to check that because I feel embarrassed by that.
Really?
No.
This is another discomfort.
That's the lean in part.
Yeah.
Do that.
I don't know.
That's giving people what they need when they need it. I mean,
yeah.
It doesn't seem to me like you're indulging a lofty position in a relationship like that.
Yeah.
It feels very nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I hope
it's
so.
Needed.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't know. I haven't really thought much about that.
But not to take away from the original point, which is, yes, you can be, but maybe before you've really found the utility of this nurturing, fatherly behavior, demeanor, and instinct. Yeah,
I don't think it's even like that's a separate thread to me. The fatherly thing or the instinct. It's just about self-confidence. It's like if you don't love yourself, if you're not happy and content in yourself, you will, if not diminishing others, you'll certainly not, like, I'm not going to make a rock star out of my buddy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, where someone who has enough, who's full in their belly is like, bro, you go. Do what do you need? You need a guitar?
Right.
You need my friend has a drummer. You should hook up with him.
Right.
You want to borrow my amp? Great. As opposed to kind of like
this scarcity mindset that you say.
It's not even scarcity. I just
fear of
something I regret in my life, you know, and it came from a place of kind of, you know, a smallness, you know,
competition.
And I don't see that as being I don't see it as being an outgrowth of my parenting as much as an outgrowth of sort of just being fucking 44 and finally getting like, you know, a quarter of my shit together. You know what I mean? As a human, like, you know what I mean? It's so.
I love that.
What was your thing you wanted to?
No, I was thinking about competition. I just had this conversation yesterday with an illustrator who's helping me work on a Batman comic book that I have.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So I have this idea for a Batman comic. It's all I'm going to disclose because
off camera.
All I could say is it's really cool in my mind.
It's wild shit.
Wild. Yeah. But anyway, there's an illustrator I went to college with, and she is fucking unreal. She's really wild, her style. And, you know, we were talking about illustration and sort of how do you market yourself as an illustrator. And she's like, oh, there's so much competition. I go on Instagram. There's all these illustrators. They're all so good. And I was like, I've never seen an illustrator like you. I was like, I've never, ever seen one. Like, I have been trying to get you on a project in my head since I've known you in college, which is like 900 years ago. Literally any chance.
Whoa, it's so long.
It's so long. Trying to think of like, where would this make sense? And it finally made sense. And I said that to her. But more importantly is, we were talking about competition. And I had this realization when not Malcolm, oh my God. Oh my, why am I forgetting his name?
Malcolm McLaren?
Yes, all of that. Oh my God. Name totally is...
Cloudwell?
No.
Take your time, bro.
what is this in regards to?
He's a designer, and designer, legendary designer. His name totally just slipped my mind.
Past Glazer?
Milton Glaser.
Yes.
Yeah. Malcolm Gladwell, MG. That's what it was. I was like, there's something. Milton Glaser, excellent, legendary graphic designer, passed away. And I had this realization that his title of designer and my title of designer are exactly the same. And the only difference is the things he's accomplished and how he's pushed for the things he has in his life. But ultimately, like, you could choose to see that person as competition, or you could choose to see them as another person moving that role forward. And they're carving out their 1% or not even 1% of the population they're addressing. And you're addressing a small percent of the population. And they don't need to overlap. And they're not competitors at all.
I like how you described Milton Glaser as pushing the whole field forward for everyone.
Yeah.
That everyone's pushing, but he just pushed it so much further than everybody else.
And he now that 1% of the population that is my market, quote unquote, or all the people I'll ever affect with design, may have been influenced by the definition of design that he set forth, or at least I have been. So now they're affected by it. And so it's not, yes, there's potential for them to take a gig or me to take a gig, but like, that's not really what's at play. More importantly is like, think about how much they can push things forward for you, the definition of what it means to be an engineer or a designer or anything. And it kind of frees up that.
There's enough gigs.
Advancing the cause.
Yeah. To push back against that a little bit, it's not as simple as saying you can choose to see them as a competitor or not, right? There's a lot of dust and cobwebs in the way, in the illusory self that needs to be worked on in order to be able to make that decision. Because you say it, there might be 1 out of 25 people that are listening live, and however many people that will hear this, there's probably a small percentage that can flip the switch and say, I can choose to unsee the competition. I mean,
absolutely right.
There's a lot to be done. I just don't want to oversimplify the choice
subconscious
factor.
mind will continue to
down its path of conditioning.
See this person as competition.
And part of the conversation was unpacking for her in that moment, like, what were the things that she was seeing as competition?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think I'm glad you brought that up, because it's not as easy as waking up tomorrow and being like, I have no competitors and my life's great. Like, it really is digging into the opposite, which is, why are you seeing them as competitors? And then how could you potentially not, like, questioning again that initial question.
I'm extremely competitive by nature, and I'm so excited for all of my peers when they release work that I didn't do. Right? They coexist. It doesn't mean that I didn't wish that I got to work on that album.
Right.
But I'm stoked that person did it because they're awesome. There's like, they can coexist together, and you can view someone as a peer and feel competitive healthily, right? So there's no, I guess what I'm saying is that on the pushback is there's no goal to like mitigate or to dissolve competition from the equation. That's what drives. It's fun.
You've got a choice to look across the like other people in doing what you do, producing, mixing, mastering, whatever, and sort of say, oh, that record came out, it's sick, I'm inspired, I'm gonna take that and run with it, that feel, that vibe, whatever. Or they got the gig and I didn't.
Yes.
Which and that's sort of where it ends.
And that's a muscle you can train.
But to circle back to the original point is, well, we're all this. We're all designers, we're all engineers, we're all producers. The only thing that separates you and I is what I do and what you don't do. And we can all move forward doing what we do, and we'll get some, we'll win some. I don't hate using the word lose, because I don't feel like I lose gigs. I feel like they just aren't for me.
Right.
So there's like, whatever language that breaks down, just some work out, some don't. But we're all pushing, hopefully, for the same goal. We as engineers, you want the sonic landscape of the music industry to elevate and be as good as possible within the boundaries of the record that it enables you to do something. Some records want to be more distorted and this and that. So the fidelity, it's like in these parameters, let's elevate together the sonic landscape.
That it goes back to our sort of the theme of lunch today, which is this stuff that Spider and I are sort of unlocking via the Unfuck thing that we're doing, and just this that really, when you drill down, we're sort of in a project for the last couple of weeks of really drilling down and finding the commonality in like everything we do. So, like probably most people who listen to this, we're all capable of more than one thing, you know. So, like describe Spider today at lunch. It's like Spider is a great producer, has great ears, has a great eye for visual design, a way of writing with, you know, good copy and knowing when something flows or when it doesn't, when it feels right, when it doesn't, you know, kind of that good taste thing, like that Steve Jobs clip that I sent you guys during the week. It's really powerful. I always think of Spider when I see it, that it's like, that sometimes it's as simple as that. It's like not many people have good taste, really good taste across the board. And to be able to sort of genre hop and discipline hop and still have good taste. It's like good taste in decor, writing, visual design, music, you know, to be able to look at the culture and sort of, you know, find the common threads. So I had a point, so we were talking about, drilling down through these. And I'm a technical guy. I could make a living doing technical work. You know, I'm a mastering guy and I have other things that I'm good at. You and Michael the same, right? So instead of sort of these differing abilities competing with each other and sort of pulling you in different directions, and it's a problem we've had in our lives, it's like drilling down below them and finding the bedrock, the common themes. What is it that we really ultimately do when you distill down mastering a record, unfucking someone's studio, you know, working with you like we did a couple of weeks ago, whatever it is. And that process has been really interesting to sort of, you know, explore.
I was talking to Michael about it a lot today, but I spent 3 hours yesterday watching the Tesla battery day, and
I love it. It's literally what it's called.
It's called Battery Day.
So cute.
They announced so much new battery technology that just based on first principles has never been done before, and they've dropped the cost 67% per kilowatt hour, the range up 54%, like crazy things just based off of, just to sum it up really quickly because some people don't know, but they've taken the technology of tab batteries, which are the plus and minus terminals that we know as batteries. They have them different. They're rolled up into the car battery, but gotten rid of the tabs, and every part of the battery can be inducted with energy at a time, so they can last longer because you're not sending the current in one and out the other each time. You can impact the current in different ways, and it's just it was a huge deal. But once Elon was kind of in a groove, and I could talk about this for hours just in general because it was really kind of inspiring. The ending was the goal of Tesla as a whole is to see how much, you know, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly, but basically how much good can we do for the earth? How sustainable can we get the audio industry, the solar energy, and like they're building power plants made out of batteries that will have 1 terawatt hours. Like these power plants will last 25 years off of batteries. Like this is insane technology that can occur, but their primary aim is to make the earth last longer, right? Like if I thought of a primary aim of what we're all trying to do, or sonically speaking, I think there's way more to the mutual effort here when we talk about our specific audience of audio makers, whether they're engineers, producers, or songwriters, or whoever, is to keep pushing and elevating the creative landscape of audio makers and what it means to holistically be one of us. And there's, I mean, we can spend hours, we have, talking about mission statements that we haven't really necessarily nailed yet, or maybe we have. And
I think we're kind of living it now rather than talking about
exactly. it. It's still hard to put it, but when I heard that, we want to do what's best for the earth. It's like, when I think about it, I want to talk about what's potentially best for an audio engineer and try to model it and see if it works. And
this is where we're landing, which is this sort of theme of unlocking potential.
Yeah.
We're super excited at the idea of unlocking Graham's potential today, the potential in the record that I'm mastering tomorrow, the Michael's potential Tuesday, whatever it is. Well, how can we unlock energy?
Yeah.
And you know, what can we do that at the end of the day we feel more buoyant than we did at the start of the day?
Isn't that what the best leaders do? That's what they do. They ask the right questions.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah,
What do you mean you hope so? I mean,
no,
what does quality leadership
leaders,
mean?
yeah.
It's funny because when you say the word leader, I don't feel like a leader.
Same. Not one bit, but I'm not saying we necessarily are.
Yeah, no, that's why I kind of like, you know what, but it's early in this process of understanding. So we like, you know, a couple of years ago, Spider and I started to help people with their rooms, and we're sort of figuring that lately that's not really what we're doing at all. It's fixing people's rooms is an outcome of often fixing their creative life or their relationship to their work or their vision for what they could be or what's possible, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. But ultimately, when you drill down enough, it's just unlocking potential. Hours. And, you know, what did I text Spider today? Siri made a balls of it, which is funny. She can't say unfuck because obviously she's Siri and she's wound pretty tight.
You definitely can't say it if you have an asterisk as the U.
Well, we've sent out 150 texts in the last hour, so I won't be able to find it. But we were talking about the potential for an idea that we were riffing today with Graham at lunch about an unfuck. So the idea of we can't scale what we're doing in people's rooms because we can't just drive around town or drive around the world. We can't unfuck a room in Tel Aviv, right? Easily. And even just doing it in town, it's not sustainable. It's not viable financially, right? So we're looking at like, okay, there's crazy demand. We're unlocking energy. It feels good. People are responding. They're blowing up our phones. How do we do more of this and not, you know, miss my daughter's birthday? Back to that theme, right? And make a living and be sustainable and be energized. And so the idea of doing it as a kind of a video blog sort of came clear for me a couple of weeks ago. It was mentioned. Kyle, I think, brought like we should do a podcast. It's like we're already doing a podcast, and it's doing a lot of this, but doing these unfuck sessions, which are getting more and more powerful, but doing them online, like a Zoom call style, video style,
on Meet,
doing it with people and sort of scaling that unlocking of energy is. I had a point with this. Where was I going?
Find it. This is good.
Where was I coming from?
You said Siri had.
Oh yeah. So what I said to Spider on the text today when I was driving is, you know, the tagline for the podcast is they started out trying to unfuck themselves and ended up unfucking the world. And it's like really at lunch today, it's like Spider and I are working on Spider and I.
Yeah.
Like we're trying to unlock our energy, our potential, like just as much as everyone else. And it's almost like we're workshopping us with other people. We're you know, through each interaction.
But
where
this is just life.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's
you know
not,
what I mean? It's a description of this sort of base level civilizational existence.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of it's common good type framing.
Yeah.
It's like focusing the energy. You know, we're talking a lot about unlocking potential, right? But then what, right? It's like you unlock potential and then what happens? And, you know, because we're in this professional audio space, this energy is being funneled into an increased human connection through recorded music, right? Like that's sort of the primary focus. Like if I have to think about a mission statement, like what do we care about audio quality? Like what does this even mean? And we don't talk about like flat responses and frequency responses and like this sort of stuff, right? Like anything you'll find in a spec sheet. We're talking about emotional immediacy, so that the instinct and the intuitions of the engineer, people touching it, match the outside world. That the intuition is correct in some sense. It doesn't need to be redone. It doesn't need a second thought. So that the human connection, like the emotional content quality that's in a recording, makes it to the audience, to an individual's nervous system. And drives thoughts and feelings and sensations, right? So clearing that path to them. So there's audio engineers who are designing the microphones and all the way to the people designing the earbuds, right? And then that go in somebody's ear. Such an intimate thing. But the unlocking potential piece, there are endless funnels, right? It could go into cancer research. It could go anywhere. And that's what I don't know what to do with, right? It's a kind of system underlying all these, what are subsystems. They look disconnected, like someone going to pharmacy school looks very different to someone going to audio engineering school, but there's a system underlying them. They're sort of human, the universals of being a human being, and what it means to try to operate in this modern system, this modern world, right?
Yeah. It's the most exciting part of what we're doing, to me, is that it's not really about...
I just don't know what to do with the scale of this concept.
I think increasingly lately, we're finding that like the actual acoustics bit is like 10%. But, and I've noticed in a couple of sessions where people are like, shouldn't we, like it's 3 p.m.
Yeah, I don't want you guys to have to leave without
Shouldn't we be doing the acoustics bit? Shouldn't we be fussing over mineral wool and frequency response now?
Right.
Isn't it time to talk about phase?
Yeah.
And it's like, now very few people have spent as much time thinking about really thinking about the minutiae of that. We've done the practice on which panel goes where, how to tune the speakers, what the trade-offs of toe in and voicing the system and distort, we've done all that work. So we can deploy it. But when we get clear about what you want and where you're headed and what you need and that stuff, we can deploy it so much more effectively. So the analogy I used in some conversation recently we had is like the idea of like the player that comes in to play on the session, and it's like they spend 3 hours hanging with the producer and the artist in the room, smoking a joint, vibing out on tracks, talking about whatever, and not doing any work in air quotes. Again, I'm waving my fingers here. And then they go in one take and they have it because they're sort of getting into a place of resonance and sort of
getting out of the way,
sympathy with the team.
Yeah.
And then and they've done all the work. They don't need to figure out how to make it.
Yeah, they're prepared.
They're prepared. They're players, right? So in our lives, it's like I'm much more excited about that sort of universality of what we're doing than the specifics. I used to be more excited about the specifics, and I'm still looking for better ways of doing things. But if you said to me, you can make records louder until you die or tune rooms until you die, nothing about that is exciting to me.
But dude, doing this, as sort of challenging as it is to have it make sense financially, the work we've done has made my phone a joyful place. All these messages we're getting, it's everything from, the pleasure they're having working, sort of rediscovering the joy of music and all this deep stuff, to like what's happening in the quality of their relationship with their kids, or it's all this positivity is coming back at us.
Yeah.
The one from shout out to Ian and Sophie from me in a couple of weeks ago. Like, is it normal to feel high at the end of listening to music for the evening? It's like it can be.
Yeah.
It's not normal. It's not
human
typical,
connection.
but we love it. We've all done it, you know. So yeah, I'm with you, but I feel like we're working on it. It's still a project.
Yeah.
To make it work. To make it viable and sustainable, and all the good grown up stuff.
Yeah.
So that we can, because there's a next level to it that we're looking to build a feedback loop where we have the time and energy to read the books, meet the people, listen in the new rooms, engage deeply with ourselves and new ideas, and bring them into new rooms and new conversations and new, to sort of do what we do well, which is like aggregate good ideas.
Yeah.
And we came out of today's session stronger than we went in.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Our understanding of who we were, what we offer, and that was particular to the conversation today, but it happens in some form with every project we do.
Yeah.
I'm working on a gnarly mastering project at the moment that even like 4 days ago, it's a big, long sound effects project, not work I typically do, but for a client that I work a lot with. And 3 or 4 days ago, I was like, I'm never doing this again. Like it was really hard. It's really been a grind. And, but I've learned a bunch from it, and sort of it's an ongoing project.
Yeah.
Every time I get a record that I struggle with, I always learn something from it, right? Like, or a project that so much, whether it's I learn not to do that again, or learn how to do it in a way that makes me feel excited about doing it again.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always something to be learned from the struggle. I mean, I think that's how we all learn. That's kind of the narrative we're told anyway, that you find it all in the struggle. And
oh no,
you know?
Yeah, your point today, Spider.
You know what I'm saying?
There's good struggle, and there's you had phrased it differently, but there's useful struggle, and there's
masochistic struggle.
We've talked about Sisyphus, and he's pushing the rock up the hill, and it's for nothing.
Yeah.
And then there's people who are lifting weights and building strength and getting they're improving the muscle. They're growing, challenging themselves, doing hard things. And I guess in various forms in our lives, we're all doing both. No one is perfectly doing hard things and growing, and no one is perfectly wasting all their energy. We're all somewhere on a continuum,
Yeah.
I don't want to be on the struggle hamster wheel.
No.
That's
I think about long periods of my life where I did that, and even funny, even as you say, like your phone is a joyful place. I've definitely had periods of my life where I've worked really hard and made other people happy, and it's still not sustainable or useful, really, ultimately. It's kind of an empty, the hamster wheel analogy is good, or empty calories is how I describe it.
Yeah, no, I do feel, I mean, one of the things that came up earlier that slides in right here is this notion of when you form these relationships with people you respect, when they are increased, you are increased, right? Again, you think of them as channels of influence. They do better, they're happier, that influences you. So it's sort of a part of you when you're tied to people in that way. It's like you like John being happy for,
Tume or whoever.
People who maybe could be easily seen as competition, but like feeling, it's fucking dope. It's like when you see people around you are doing well, that's lifting everybody up. If that's your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you said Tume, perfect example. Today he had a song come out that James Blake produced. I forgot who the artist is, and I'm like, damn, I want to mix something James Blake produced, but I don't want him not to have mixed it, so I can mix it.
You're not.
I want to also mix something James Blake produced,
or find the next James Blake and produce a track for him, or mix a track for him, or whatever.
No, I definitely want to mix James Blake.
You want the original James Blake,
but can you?
But
have
I also want him to have it. It's like.
But I wonder if there is some kind of alignment on outcomes or some common vision that allows, it's like, well, if this whole scene, like if I'm a mix engineer and I'm part of this field, right? Do I want the field to do well?
Yes.
Fucking yeah.
Right. Yes.
Right. I want this pie to grow. Let's grow it for everybody.
Yeah. I'm actually, on that note, I just found out on Saturday that I'm on some Grammy engineer committee board. I got accepted. It's like, I don't know what that really means. I have to do a little research. But what it means to me is I'm going to find a way. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at the fact that you called it a committee board, which it's probably your first time ever being on a committee board, because that's not what they're called.
Some committee.
It's a committee board conference.
It's a committee.
I know.
It's usually one or the other.
It's great. I'm just joking.
And
you're going to get Michael a graphic design Grammy?
You're gonna find a way to steal that gig from Tume. Is that what you're saying?
Nah, Tume, come on. Get on the committee board, Tume. No. I want to have some. I want to have some voice in acknowledging engineers as equals to producers, right? So I have a mild agenda with my role as an engineer. This podcast partly. To gain some sort of notoriety and voice to make the engineer role equally as coveted as the producer role. I don't know why it's not. Tume posted today something great, which is every engineer should own a piece of equity in anything that they make.
Sure.
This has been an ongoing conversation at Conversations at the Gift Shop. Like, do engineers deserve a point? We deserve a piece of the art and records that we touch. But we also deserve some sort of equal credit. I'm still confused, and I would love a little feedback on this. Why even the homies, even producer homies, still don't tag the engineer on Instagram, right? Like Instagram, sadly, is where our credits live, whether it's temporary or, if you do a post and it lasts longer or whatever, that's where it lives. And still, it's like produced by, written by, and I'm like, yo, we had drinks last night. Like, what you didn't tag? And it's not, it can't be personal because it's Instagram, and you don't want to romanticize this platform as anything more than it is, which is a platform of connectivity and communication. But if that's where they live, why are the engineers not getting tagged as often as the producers or mentioned or whatever the terminology will be and will continue to be? And I think it's because it's still, whether your friend tells you they fuck with you and your mix, they don't really respect it as much as the producer role. It's just not possible.
Is there
So I'd like to have some sort of
follower count factor? Do artists tend to have higher follower counts and producers than engineers?
They could.
I mean,
where are you going with that?
Yeah, I don't know. What do you mean?
Well, what's the incentive to tag somebody if you're not gaining their audience?
I think it happened before social media.
Yeah.
I think it's probably more
to shout
of
out the
cultural thing.
The homies.
Yeah. It's also, obviously, I'm thinking about Nathan at the Hit Lab, and every Saturday they're making stories recapping all the tracks they worked on. And like we had agreed early on, like tag everyone you possibly can in it. And he's like, it takes me hours to do. Now, obviously they have like, he's like finding all the things and like writing it in a database to like get all their tags. Like, but some people only have like a record or a track. So I don't know for that reason why they wouldn't. But basically one reason might be just laziness ultimately. Like it's very easy to be like, this takes me hours to find, not gonna, or even if it takes me an extra minute to find, it's also all in defense of people not tagging other people. I even find I'll be in a story and I want to tag someone and I can't find their handle in there.
Totally. Yeah. That's very reasonable.
People do like weird names and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Even Mike Miller, please change your handle. I try to tag him all the time, and I'm like, what is his handle?
The Michael 360.
Yeah, he's not even Michael. He's Mike.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to be
I type
Michael.
at Mike Miller, and I expect it to come up. Mike, you're not listening yet.
It's been prescribed.
Yeah.
You must change your handle.
Yeah.
It seemed, okay. That argument would make sense if it didn't happen the majority of the time.
Can I steel man the opposing team?
Yeah, please.
There are a lot of records that would be no different if you swapped out the engineers.
Yes.
All of the engineers on the record. So if you change the artist, the record changes. Like change Katy Perry's vocal to Taylor Swift and it's a different record. If you change the producer from Digi to OG Volta, the record changes.
Yep.
On a lot of records, if you swap out the engineers for other engineers, the record is no different.
What engineer? The recording engineer or the mix engineer or the mastering engineer?
Any or all of them in a lot of records we're listening to.
Don't fully agree.
There's a lot of commodity work I think what we've...
Not at the level I'm talking about.
Of course this isn't what we want but the reality is...
But I'm talking very specific...
But if we think about it, like, it's impossible to change the producers or the engineers, any of them. Sorry, it's impossible to change the producers or the artists without the record changing, obviously. It's going to be a different record. But in many cases, who showed up for the vocal tracking session, often who mixed it, it doesn't matter if, one guy mixed it or one girl mixed it, it's going to be of a level, it might be different, slightly different flavors of B grade, but it's all B grade. So the thing is, the mechanics of it are that often engineers don't affect the outcome. Not always. And in truly sublime work, the engineers are critical to the outcome.
Yeah.
But often the work is no different.
So
it creates a culture where it doesn't matter which engineer did it.
And Jon was addressing this last year at the...
Exactly.
The early meeting.
And that's where the phrase commodity
engineering.
If you're replaceable on the session, if you call in and say, I can't make it today, and they're like, cool, bro. Yeah, other dude is here.
But sorry, I got to step in. This is very, that's a thing. And we've talked about that a lot. I'm talking about something very, very specific. I'm talking about the fact that I never do it, but I got a Billboard magazine that came for the Grammy preview, and it like showed up, and I was with Niku and I was reading through it, and when it came to like top 10 producers on the Billboard charts, like Tyler Johnson's name was on there. At number 8, it was so sick. I sent him a photo, which is like a crying emoji, because I was just so happy to see that there. Why is there no top 10 mix engineer, mastering engineer column? Like, because at that level, I don't care how old and how long they've been doing this for, like Serban deserves to have to be known in Billboard for the fact that he has 8 of the top 10 hit songs out right now that he mixed. He should have that sort of notoriety. And the next Serban to come, and the next Manny, and the next all of them deserve to be acknowledged for the success that they have, only aside to the fact that the producers and the writers and the artists also are, because they're still on the same records. If you took Serban off those 8 top 10 songs and had Manny mix them, could they still be 8 out of the top 10 songs? Sure. It doesn't mean that neither of them deserve to have also been acknowledged at the same level as the producer for that amount of success. It just doesn't change
your
that.
point stands, and my point stands. It's just, when you zoom out across the whole industry, you can never change the artist without a change of outcome. You can never change the producer without a change of outcome. You can often change the engineer without affecting the outcome at all. Often. Not always. Sometimes, like, it's impossible to, right?
Well, hold on.
So what it means is that it sets a culture of the engineer doesn't matter.
See, we're not aligned on the outcome then.
Well, no, because often many people have experience of doing sessions, making records, having mixes done, and it doesn't matter if it's mixer A or B. It doesn't matter if it's vocal engineer A or B. The outcome is broadly the same. So it creates a culture of this doesn't matter.
When you say matter, you mean like they can't hear the difference?
There isn't a difference. There isn't. There often isn't a difference.
It's impossible for there not to be any difference.
There's a difference, but it's not
an appreciable one.
Not an appreciable one.
Right.
So
which is because they're not elevated.
Okay. Right.
So,
but hold on.
Let's get specific.
Hold on. But what we're talking about, and the both points standing, I still don't agree that both points stand, because this is how it's been up to a point, and I want that to change, right? So us talking about that point still stands keeps us back here. And I want this to go, that was cool up until then. Now they're acknowledging the producer at this level in this category here. Why aren't they also doing this? And sure, your point
I'm not defending it. I'm not defending it at all. I'm explaining the mechanics of it. So I'm not saying this is how it is and we should stay here. But the point is to understand why. So, to get specific about it, right? There is a major label level vocal tracking session happening with an A-list artist. So it's Pink or it's Victoria Monet or whoever, right? Doesn't matter. And Selena, whatever. And the artist, can't change the artist without just fucking everything. Can't change the producers, writers often. But the vocal tracking engineer who shows up that day, quite often, there are 5 engineers you can swap in. And one will put up a 251, one will put up the Manley ref.
10, 20, 30.
One will put up, will go for an 1176 or CL1B, whatever. There is one engineer out of those 5 who will actually elevate the session, for whom the outcome will be so different that the record will be perceptibly a different record. So
you're saying one of 5.
I'm riffing,
and
right? It's
therefore,
just a number.
They should be recognized.
Exactly.
Yes, but if you look at the way humans' brains work,
so they'll get recognized more regularly.
Those people hopefully will get hired more. But the trend is that we swap engineers, and the if I have 3 pairs of shoes, and on the days I wear the red ones, I make $500 more. Like, I'm going to see this pattern.
It's probably been this way ever since there's been audio engineering.
Yeah.
That it's like a sort of work for hire.
Yeah.
But commodity position.
The answer isn't to, I don't think, to tell people that we should recognize all engineers. The answer is better engineering. The answer is being more indispensable.
Yeah, what I'm saying.
So you're coming at the same problem, but you're coming from a different way. Your route in is we should we should acknowledge engineering, and I'm saying we should make engineers indispensable. Make it acknowledgeable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, I think I'm saying something a bit more, even more specific than that. If you do that, if you acknowledge them at the level of producer, or at a level equivalent to producer, not at producer level, the credit should remain. I go back to the word coveted. Everybody wants the producer role. It is coveted. It doesn't seem like anybody wants the engineer or the mixed by credit as much as you want the produced by credit. So all the mixers, I know so many mixers that still their hope is to get production credits because they think that's where they need to land. Versus if you saw a chance to be acknowledged at that level because you're not a commodity engineer, because you've donated your life to the craft of what it means to be the best engineer that you possibly can be and bring that amount of artistry and impact and influence to a record, then you get more of those types of engineers, not the ones that are in the room being the engineer for the producer who they want to follow in their shoes to be that producer, and then hire another commodity engineer to record vocals for said producer so they can make beats, and then it funnels that commodity engineer to producer role, commodity engineer to producer role, and so on and so on. And none of those engineers ever wind up being a professional engineer. That's how you get these jammed up, shitty, rough mixes that get across the line as the final mix, because this isn't even an engineer. And I'm not trying to talk down to the people that are in those roles. I would aspire you to take your role more seriously, and then there's a chance that you could exist in that role permanently at the highest level and give you as much satisfaction. That's just not modeled and acknowledged as much as the latter. And I think that's why we don't have as many non-commodity engineers.
So the carrot, so it's the status, like the way the hierarchy looks is like the tip of the pyramid is lower than you'd like to set it, so that the game has like a sweeter finish, there's like a sweeter pot of gold at the end to entice people to care more about the thing. And I wonder if that's a good incentive. If like, because I think Rory's approaching it, well, let's make engineering worth something to acknowledge. Like, let's
am I not saying that verbatim?
No, you're saying to use a carrot and dangle the carrot in front of engineers to get them to chase it.
So here, can I try an analogy to explore
yeah.
this? So let's look at two worlds. Let's look at Starbucks baristas and sommeliers at the highest level, right? Working in sort of James Beard level restaurants, right? Michelin starred restaurants. So when I go to Starbucks, and I've used a version of this analogy before, I'm not looking for the barista's opinion on anything. I'm tired, I'm going to work for the night, and I want an Americano, right? I don't go to Starbucks, by the way, but whatever.
Yeah.
Just, so I go in, Americano, sure, bro. There you go, $2, we're done, right? When I go to a Michelin star restaurant, which I also don't do on the regular, you engage with a sommelier, and they're talking about what you're eating and who you are and where you've been, and they're bringing a lifetime of experience and tasting to bear on the choice of your bottle or bottles, and it's an elevated thing. Their opinion, their input has a very it's very impactful on the quality of your evening and your willingness to come back and pay $500 for a meal, right? So in this world, what you're saying is if we make an award for Starbucks baristas, it will...
It's not an award, it's an acknowledgement.
An acknowledgement.
But it's not the same incentive.
It's not the same. It's not.
Okay, it's
I'm not giving you a medal.
Status. I mean, it's just status.
Well, status is not an award.
Of course it is.
No, it isn't.
No, okay.
It's an acknowledgement
can we follow it to the end?
What is facts?
Can we follow it to the end?
The facts are these songs are winning, so these producers are winning. There's an engineer attached to all these songs. They're not shown to be winning.
Okay, allow me to finish the point.
Please.
So do we give an award to the person who served J.J. Abrams an iced latte in Starbucks? J.J. Abrams lives wherever he lives, in Malibu or whatever, right? And he rocks up to the local Starbucks, and someone is lucky enough, they're just in the seat that day, and they serve him a thing. So it's like, you served You pressed the button on the machine and gave J.J. Abrams that day. So
okay,
but different things.
But there's a scenario where you would, if you're the manager of a Starbucks and that employee is requested by J.J. Abrams every time when he shows up because of their performance.
Which goes to, you're making my point.
Yeah.
Which is if you do better work, you know what I mean? It's coming at it from two sides. I'm trying to tease it out by illustrating.
I don't see these being different points. Of course you have to do better work, so then you have the chance of being acknowledged.
Right.
That part is already gone without without saying.
We want better. I
don't want the lucky. No. Hold on. Wait. We're saying the same thing from two pretty similar angles.
That's what we're exploring.
But
right?
I'm not saying. I'm not saying that.
That's not an acknowledgement. Is not an award. Status is not an award.
It's all tied to your serotonin system and contributes to your sense of well-being. How you fit.
That's the key.
Yeah,
the sense of well-being. Engineers would have a higher sense of well-being and existence when they're in the studio till 4 a.m.
That's the reward of accomplishment.
That's
the reward of
but that's
hard
different
work.
than dangling a carrot.
No, it's the same. It's an incentive.
It's not.
I see where you're coming from, John.
How is it different?
It's not a Grammy. That's not saying that you need to have you need your own Grammy category. The producer has one. I would say that it would be nice if there was one. But that's not what I'm actually saying. I'm saying single-handedly acknowledge us as credits equally. So therefore, if you're acknowledged by credit, then by default, you'll be sat next to these on a Billboard chart. And whatever that means, like this is the only example I have because this is real life. Like this is happening. There's magazines and all these people are credited, and the engineer, who is not a commodity, none of these people on these records that I'm talking about next to these producers was just at Starbucks. They're not
replaceable.
They're not replaceable, right? And we might, as engineers, feel better about our lives and our version of well-being wherever we are on the spectrum if it was equally as acknowledged. And that's what I'm fighting for. And if you don't believe that that's something worth fighting for, I don't even know how to align anymore. Because I'm not talking about the lucky Starbucks barista who presses the button and it comes out.
I think
not a thing.
Why there's a difference in how we're viewing this problem is that you're looking at the top strata and I'm talking about the whole business. So I'm talking from the very bottom to the very top, and you're looking at the Billboard level stuff, and really.
But everybody has access to the Billboard level
to get there.
Yeah, you're saying that if we address the Billboard thing, that it raises all the boats in the whole business.
It does,
and I think that point is that makes sense to me.
It's I had to look for a research paper on the impact of rewards on organizational performance to kind of see if there's any connection there. What was interesting in this study that I found is that they're saying that financial incentives actually had a negative impact on performance, but all the other ones, like the idea of a promotion, this idea of moving up on a ladder, had a highly significant impact. I think this idea of evolving, of competing to get to this next level is motivational, and culturally, if you're talking about an organization or this lack of organization of engineers, but they're still part of this broad engineering group, to see what the peak is. If the bar is always low, then it's like, I might as well just stay here and do
what I do. Filter out.
Yeah.
So raise the status to inspire people to dig deeper.
Yeah. You said dangling the carrot, and it's like,
the
yes, it
is maybe
but then it's a negative connotation with the dangling the carrots, like trap them in a cage or something, this is really about how do we incentivize and how do we impact people on a deep level and their performance, more importantly. And so it's like the whole thing we're talking about here is how do we influence people's performance? And we're saying eat right, sleep right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, another way
validate
is validate, acknowledge their promotion, quote unquote, and their contributions. And I think that's super important.
I would love to have a producer that is on that list talk about this, talk about if that role could have been replaced necessarily, who did it, like, if we had so-and-so, it wouldn't have mattered. Like,
I think safe bet, your point stands at the top 10%. the people do matter. The record will be different, identifiably different if Serban does it than Manny does
but
it.
how do you
or
get
you
there?
does it. You do it.
Yeah, how do you get there? It's by wanting to be there. Wanting to be on Billboard is irrelevant. It's the only option I have example to point to, and I just saw it, and I was like, who are all these people? Cool, what do they do? Oh shit, those records are really tight. Who mixed those records? And it's a bunch of different great people that should be acknowledged for their work. There's no one-off lucky in-the-room tracking engineer that got the gig. And then for that example, Geoff Ellis deserves to be commended for his I'm the lucky tracking engineer in the room on Frank Ocean, who Omos Keith says, no, he'll mix it. He can handle this work. And he did it, gets a Grammy, his life changes, right? Like, that's an accolade that might be a dangled carrot if you want to choose that as the example, but that has survived him the rest of his career. And he is, to me, should be acknowledged in this category. Not to me, like to a lot of engineers. It's like, we want to see Geoff Ellis uplifted. Why don't I know that he did this record? I can't find it anywhere except for his Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that simple, but it's all for incentive. And I thought I started there with incentive. I think that is what it's for. And I think, money as a financial gains is never a good incentive or motivation.
For creative.
I love
but
this.
for the well-being of
The strongest and highly significant relationship exists between appreciation and organizational performance.
Yeah.
And that's what this is at the end of the day. It's not a reward, it's appreciation for the role.
That is
and
the
it's a
reward.
demonstration of that
thank you for that.
appreciation culturally.
All right.
I think that's important.
That's science, bitches. That's we can't argue with science.
But no, I
I'd
think-
argue all day, but science wins.
I think both is true. On an institutional
You made
top-down
me
level,
take out the papers.
you can create incentives and an incentive structure to encourage performance, and at the same time, you can be pushing people from behind and guiding them and encouraging them and giving them the tools they need to achieve in that game. And I think John's right. You can't do one without the other. I mean, my intuition, I think yours, is to go to the engineers and provide those tools and guidance and a system through which they can move. And John is coming top down and looking at, what is the structure of the game? If it's not sweet at the end, why do we care?
So the argument I was making is, a young engineer is saying, I didn't get the prize, like I'm not winning, I'm not getting a prize, and where our answer is be better, and John's answer is, but there isn't even a prize if you are better. Like you're not actually getting the acknowledgement, even if you do win the game.
But I wonder how exceptional, like how...
I want to concede on all points. You win this one.
No, but
you're right.
But
you're right.
But I'm also seeing it both at the same time. It's at the same time. Look, I started as an engineer because I wanted to be in the background, right? Like a lot of us do that. Where a lot of us are really nerdy. We have a lot of my peers have very, little enthusiasm to their personalities. Like they're not gonna hype a room and produce a record the right way. They're just like, but so there's to a degree, we don't want to be known.
John's friends are lame. No, I'm kidding, man.
No, to a degree, we don't want to be known, but we want to be respected and acknowledged.
Of course.
And that's been my thing for the last 17 years I've been doing this is, there's another record that went out without anybody knowing I did it. And I've lived with it for these 17 years where it doesn't bog me down. I'm not depressed about it most of the time. Every now and then I'm like, damn, that record's got 400 million streams and nobody talks about it, like that I worked on this and I know what I did to that record and that record would not be the same without me touching it. And I can say that about a handful of records. I can't say that about that many records that because I touched it, it became this thing. But there's a handful that I can confidently stand by that and show an A/B and it would probably be dramatically just objectively better and more usable. And I don't necessarily think that that's the only reason one should do what we do. But I think that, it would be nice if there was a sweet, sense of victory at the end sometime.
You won. You convinced us. No, I'm convinced.
I think Michael's paper is convinced.
Questioning from the other end, it's like, what's the point of not acknowledging? What good is it doing?
That's what I'm getting
That's
at,
where
too.
I came from, is not justifying the way it is, but explaining why it's the way it is. So it's to me is the mechanics of how we've ended up in this place.
But we've only talked about the cultural layer, right? Like we have an idealized version of the way it should work, and we're saying, hey, how do we move toward it, right? But what are the market forces at play, right? We know that the audiences for artists and producers is bigger, right?
Wait, hold on. How come he got away with saying market forces?
What do you mean?
On this podcast, and I can't say my businessy words.
Market forces?
I love
economics.
That's not. It's economics.
It's not corporate.
Hey, it's economics.
It's economics.
Different field.
Yeah, I know.
No. I'm just saying, like, why? So there's a market there, right? So let's just say Billboard has readers, right? Can their readers tell between, like, which engineer did what? Like, if you had to get a vote from the Billboard audience, would they be able to discern?
Well, they can't until they can.
Ones?
Yeah,
they don't have the opportunity to right now because they're not told who did it.
So could they tell what a producer does?
No way.
Like people reading it, could
you
they
hear
really?
Pharrell and there's like a sound. You hear
true.
another producer.
Yeah,
like
but those
are
are deep fans. Those are deep fans. That's not an obvious thing. I mean, Neptune's to Happy is like a different sound.
Producers are like artists in their own right. They're marketable.
Yeah, they are, and they're
agreed.
To John's point, they have flair, personality, style. They're often public personas, and they're not the engineer in the room who's looking at a Pro Tools screen and that sort of lower key energy that you talked about, focused artisans on a specific task or whatever. So yeah, they're.
But I hate the word faith. I have faith in humans and the auditory sense that if you were, okay, let's just say that these charts existed. It's top 10 songs, top 10 producers on said songs, top 10 engineers on said songs. And you listened and you heard the pattern. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize when this person touches this a record like this, it sounds like this. And you have another layer of the record making process that fans can be fans of, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's how we all started. We knew Bruce Swedian was involved in Michael Jackson records alongside Quincy Jones. We know these facts because we care.
Yeah.
Other people outside of the ones that make it, I know people that know what a mix engineer is and are fans. I mean, I know that people care about the sonics of records, and I know a lot of people don't. But there's enough that do that I bet could tell the difference, and it would be like a game to them. Like
it's how I started buying records. I would buy by the label. So, Sub Pop Singles Club, or I would buy everything that 4AD put out because they put out so many things that I liked.
Yes.
That it's like, well, this is the common thread here is this label.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep buying what they put out. Yeah. Or, for a period, it was like Steve Albini recorded it. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was in that mode. So you're right. I think that's another way in for superfans.
Yeah.
And the fact that we can't search Spotify by Serban, or
you can search Tidal.
But even then sometimes. It shows up like a quarter of the major stuff rather than none of the indie stuff.
Yeah.
So You're right.
I don't know. I think instead of bending Billboard and all of its momentum and whatever market forces are at play, and artificially creating a spotlight, putting a spotlight on engineers, like,
why is it artificial?
Just because the market didn't naturally produce it. We're like imposing it.
The Grammys didn't naturally. This is
emerge.
Yeah, well, emerge and acknowledge women. Things change. What do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying using the word artificial critically. I'm just saying it's human caused. It's not like the market just didn't produce it. Like the market forces is a natural force, like a force of nature.
When I think of
but were people asking for producers to win Grammys? Like, were people requesting that? Like,
we're talking about Billboard, right?
Well, yeah.
Or Billboard, yeah. Like,
but they're both very similar.
I wonder what the origin of
Billboard
that
is a business.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
you don't think that they can add a chart? There's a million charts for every fucking thing. What do you mean? They can't. It's metadata. It's in the system. They don't do anything really. They just publish a chart and you can
Well,
add
I like
another
the
one.
financial incentive. Or
Yeah,
I would let
Yeah.
Spider finish his point.
I'm just
but
saying,
yeah, sorry.
whatever market forces are at play that have prevented it from ever happening, instead of trying to bend Billboard, like, why not a new institution that's like built around like a new sort of community, like
Because the conversation, for example.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm with
think
that.
about Naris, or I can't even remember the name. These organizations that I'm not a member of any of them. They're so anachronistic and out of date and just musty and from another weird time. They don't seem to have any relationship to the modern record making business. And I think about like even the Grammys or Billboard, these sort of lumbering giants. They're like those giant walking things in Star Wars, and it's like two dudes with a fucking two dudes with a chain
With a rope.
can trip them over.
Yeah, okay.
And
It
you're
would
like,
be-
that's how I feel about
I
them.
understand.
You mean an
it would
A-wing?
Be, it would be...
Yes, all that. I don't know these movies.
it's a new institution
It would
that
be nice.
has these values.
Yes,
that
but it
you're
would be
talking
nice if they also coexisted.
Yeah. Why not both?
about. Yeah, bring them along.
We don't.
But lead
We
by
don't do.
example.
We don't do what Pensado's Place and Mix with the Masters does. But I would love to go talk about what we do on those two platforms. You
Yeah,
know,
why not?
Why can't we talk about the new engineer institution in
Let-
Billboard and get an article, and then. I mean, I would consider it a victory for engineers if this were to happen at one day. So I don't. I wouldn't want to write it off as not a possibility, because I know it's a possibility, because at one point there was no producer there. It was only charting songs and artists, and then there became a producer one. I believe in our role enough that I
But
think
isn't that because there was interest in producers and producers became artists in their own right?
became stars and
It's bottom up. It's like readership determined that.
Is that
That's what I mean by market
fact?
forces.
Yeah, wait,
You know
what-
that
No,
for sure?
I'm just saying.
I don't think
I would
so.
assume that
Right.
if you're in the publishing business, that's what you do.
craft narratives.
They're writing what people want to read.
You write things that people want to read, and it's the audience guides your decisions.
So
I mean-
as we build demand for engineers and incentives, then other people take
Businesses
note
will
and-
respond.
Right.
So I mean, a simple way is you build. If this podcast gets to 10,000 subscribers or 100,000 subscribers,
When?
it's a wait a second. There's a charting podcast around audio engineering. That's a data point that might get on their radar.
Yeah.
Right. So and that resonates with me. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not saying Billboard can't flip a switch and then there's an
Sure.
engineering category.
They're out of columns. No, we've got no more
curious
columns
about
left.
why
Right.
it
Yeah,
hasn't happened.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's all.
yeah.
I think
I think we know they can.
If anyone
Can they afford
listening
to?
knows Billboard peeps, send us a message so we could speak to them
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
on
I'm
a
talking about.
professional
Let's
level.
understand it.
I'm very interested.
Yeah,
to
if
know
I can hear a good
Yeah.
argument for why they shouldn't be there from someone that's there, then I'm down to concede. I don't
Yeah.
until I hear that argument.
We get
I'd also love
Billboard
to
to the
hear
studio every month, or I don't even know when it comes out, and I haven't been tempted to crack
Ever.
one open.
Ever.
Like, it
Ooh, I
just
should-
doesn't get read. So to me, it has no relationship to my life in music.
I've never heard anyone say I read this thing at Billboard. You got to read it. It's
I
not-
mean, my Instagram feed is filled with people posting
Yeah.
Billboard articles of their records coming
Right.
out and their friends' records coming out and their friends' records coming out. Like, okay, whether you read it or not is irrelevant. That it's getting published and someone's reading it, or else they wouldn't keep paying for the paper to come out.
Yeah, I
seeing
saw
pictures
an
of it.
artist today that I'd worked with talk about a Rolling Stone article, and it's like,
Ooh,
you know what I mean? It's like,
it reminds me of Borders books when I was 16.
what, you know,
Go get the Guitar Tab.
I don't know. Matt
magazine.
Taibbi was at
They had a
Rolling Stone
Starbucks
until
in
like
there.
a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure, yeah. But do you know
He's a
anyone
rock
reading
star.
Rolling Stone? Is it
I know
a-
people reading Matt Taibbi.
Yes, exactly.
Hell yeah.
Matt's the rock star,
Yeah.
and nobody cares about
And
the
also
label.
reading
you know.
versus scrolling on Instagram and subscribing to them and seeing what they're putting out, and you know, maybe reading a caption, diving into an
I think
article. I mean,
Look
people
at
are doing
Rolling
that.
Stone,
Yeah.
see what my friends
we're
are
teasing
following.
out what we're sort of dancing around is the relevance of these lumbering institutions in a music business that's changing faster than ever.
Totally.
And it's why something like Pensado's Place can blow up so quickly,
Yeah.
right? That it's servicing a kind of a demand in the music space.
But
or-
engineers are listening and watching Pensado's Place. I'm still talking about the possibility of the role being somehow understood mainstream, and there being enough of a story to tell about that part of the role, that role and part of the process.
Yeah, I buy it.
Pensato's place is
by engineers for engineers. Yeah. You're talking about reaching the mainstream music listening public,
the edges of the community,
with data on who made their records.
Yeah.
So I get that.
I don't know. I've just been thinking about it a fair amount.
I mean, look, is it the most important thing? No. But collectively, it adds to the whole picture.
Yeah.
And it whether or not they'll be around in 10 years is not even important as much as it's just another indication that there are levels of success to achieve and there's levels of recognition to be had. And there's a reason to give a shit about anything we're talking about and why you should improve as an engineer. I mean, it's playing with intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, right? Sometimes it's external that's motivating you. Sometimes it's internal. Sometimes it's both.
Yeah.
And I think it matters whether it's only 1% mattering or to someone or 50.
I think about if I left this table and decided this is my life's work. I'm now a minister of this cause. I'm going to go out and work on it. And I had 100 units of energy to spend. Would I spend 100 units fighting musty old Rolling Stone and Billboard?
That's the question.
These lumbering sort of out-of-date giants. Or would I spend it bringing a match to the fucking, gasoline keg of engineer energy that Spider and I are seeing out in the world and fucking blowing that shit up and getting energy there? To me, it's all about, groundswell, untapping this potential that we're buoyed up by on the daily, as opposed to these sort of what these old guard media
but that
brands are.
I think it's so why not attack a problem from two sides?
I was about to say that you're talking about the anarchist point of view, and I'm talking about it from
very unfair. No,
sorry,
not anarchist. That has a stink on it in the current moment.
Sorry.
No, I'm talking about.
Well, it's bottom up.
Well, you're talking about igniting.
But it sounds to me. So if we're talking bottom up or top down, you to agree to that point, I have to assume that the bottom is all the way down and the top is this elevated sort of peak of the mountain, with this kind of eternal quality. And actually, I see
that's not it at all.
I see their height as being very sort of untenable, unsustainable, and I see the bottom up thing. I can see that groundswell happening very quickly. So the idea of in 5 years there being an engineer-centric body that's actually relevant, that to me sounds like, of course there could.
For sure.
I could see that happening in a heartbeat.
Totally. We're doing that right now.
There's
and
such a hunger for it.
If I got the update on Instagram today, Rolling Stone are closing their doors forever.
Right.
No one gives a fuck. I'd be like, figures.
I hope the headline says, and no one gives a fuck. Just be crazy.
Billboard acknowledged they're not relevant. That all.
Rogue community manager.
So it's about what I would do with my 100 points of energy if I left this table. It's not a destructive thing. I don't care to see Billboard fail, but I'm back to the tapping energy, unlocking potential.
Energy,
I'm excited to. The conversation where this podcast started with you and John in the room here, that energy is contagious. The amount of people we meet who are like, man, I wish I could have gotten in that room. I reached out,
couldn't get an invite.
Couldn't get an invite. It's like a small room, and not a velvet rope elitist thing, but just
small room,
just a limited capacity.
I just want to be in it.
Definitely cook so much food.
This desire. We're not meeting people saying, man, I just wish I could get in Billboard. Just doesn't. They don't say it.
Yeah, but they would show up to the convo a little bit with a little bit more of a smile. I think they
so.
did. And
I know so. I know when people show up after they had some.
I must. Sure. I'm going to pause to say I love the lateral thinking here, which is why solve it from the top down or at the and top. I don't mean better or worse. I just mean hierarchically. We're trying to get in there, so we got to work our way up to it. I love that. I think that why need to assume that this organization is going to go away, or there's a need to tear it down when there's some nice structures at play? It could and should be modernized. If they need a brand guy, what's up? But like, that's a whole different thing, why it's perceived the way it is, right? But there are moves that they could make that could change how they're perceived, and then therefore it's a pretty good structure for recognition in this industry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It might not be serving its optimal purpose, but neither are engineers in certain capacities.
To me, the analogy is, the car industry actively, say here in LA, actively destroyed public transport, right? Mm-hmm. They made it their business to buy up and shut down, train services and whatever. They didn't have to do that with the horse and buggy whip industry, right? It just, the cars were better and the old shit went away. Yeah. I don't feel any animosity towards Billboard. I'm not, which is why I sort of
fucking love Ruairi.
Which is why I sort of
I didn't know where that metaphor was going.
Fine. No, but the point is, I'm not interested. I don't want Billboard to fail or Rolling Stone. They're just as irrelevant as sort of buggy.
Well, look, maybe there's a more fun.
But Jon says they're not. Jon, I get you're saying that it matters to you or to other people that their names show up there.
I see it
too.
I see it a lot of places.
The charts
I don't.
matter.
Again, this is the first time I read it in maybe a decade.
I see the posts, and to me, that's more relevant than a magazine, which everyone kind of knows that at that point.
Yeah, everyone's going digital.
So they're digital, and people are sharing.
But it's the charts. To
me, it's funny because these brands have a sort of an outsized effect on our perception things. Like I read this thing and it said, broccoli is good. Or I read this thing in the New York Times and they said broccoli is good. It's like, oh.
So did little Yachty.
So how often do I read the New York Times? Not very often anymore, right? So
broccoli also hates Donald Trump.
But these
in the New York Times.
That's true.
These
that's
are brand names
news.
and they're bought up by sort of clearing houses who own brand names. They're not like, you know what I mean? They're just consumer brands at this point.
Yeah.
I love where we went with that. I really, really do. Because I was using Billboard as an example of, I'm pretty sure people still read it. I see it all the time. They're the only place that acknowledges the charts. I do think they're highly irrelevant in many ways. It was my in to the conversation and being on this Grammy committee, which I have to figure out what I actually even do.
Just fuck your chances on the
I have a Zoom next week. I don't know.
Fuck the Grammys. Fuck Billboard. Fuck everyone.
Is there even going to be Grammys this year? Like, what does that even look like?
Oh my God.
A sick Zoom call.
Yeah, but what it is
just give him the Billy again.
Attempting to as I'm going to continually do, and I love that there's maybe a new avenue to do this and a new institution to do this behind, whether it's us or in collaboration with anybody else, to incentivize and acknowledge the engineer role and its importance to the process that it can be, the potential that it does have, that you guys are unlocking in the room for me and others alike me. And if we got into Billboard, fuck them. That sounds great to be in there. That's not the goal. The goal is not there's not like you said, if we had energy points to spend on our dying days, that would not be the one. It would be these conversations, and I'm aligned on the outcome with you, Ruairi.
Look at that.
How are you feeling on this?
Look at that.
How are you feeling on that?
Maligned on the outcome.
Well, I can rest easy here.
But I just before, if we're going to close, I think there's a way of looking at these levels of analysis. Like here, we're at a local level, we're having conversations between individuals, and we're concentrating on what we can do as people and as individuals to further our personal cause or whatever. That's bottom up, right? Top down is, what is the system that I'm a part of? Yeah. And so we don't have to even think about any kind of character or flavor. That's just a structural fact of the way people work. So when we're talking about the structures or the system or the game, we're talking about a set of incentives and guidelines. And so, we do want to think on it. Think about this problem at all levels of that system. Yeah. and including the individual. So when an individual watches a video and they learn and they incorporate that thing into their game and they have new perspective, that's a bottom-up effect of, this sort of cultural change. And then you have the interaction with businesses and institutions that respond and are in relationship to and in feedback with all the individuals. So it's always at the individual level, and then at these sort of collective various levels of scale in collective form. So you've got a mix engineer, their business, their team, their group of friends, and the overlap with all the other mix engineers and their teams. So that's like a certain business level. And then you can have associations, which like a guild or, some kind of, and then you can have also these, awards and all this sort of public acknowledgement systems, and then all the businesses that serve them. And they all form a giant system that is like the professional audio industry or whatever, which is part of the music business, which is part, So these are all systems and structures that we can think about intervening at any level to cause whatever change you want to cause. And that's an integrated way. That's sort of taking like people who are typically conservative politically, they're going to think about that bottom-up effect. They're going to think about how to make quality individuals, and they look at society as a collection of quality individuals, and that's the best place to intervene. And people who are more liberal-minded, they're going to think about the systems that those individuals play within. They're saying, no, there's incentives. These incentives matter. It's not just your will, right? And they're both right? So yeah, we want to integrate those ideas so that we can not only unlock the potential, but funnel that potential into the most productive, most motivating sort of structure, so that we move the field further, faster.
You're saying
right?
I'm a conservative anarchist. This is I'm
not the anarchy thing is a cheap shot.
I'm kidding, man. Your point. I totally get where you're coming from.
We're trying to move the needle. Yeah,
it's and at all levels. I think that a good tell for how enjoyable this conversation was tonight is that the last time I looked at the screen, we were at 65 minutes, and I just looked over and it's an hour and 138 minutes. So what's that? 2 hours 18.
Yeah, let's wrap it.
So the last hour and 10 or 15 just flew by.
Yeah.
I loved it. Had a great day with you, Spider, and with Graham, if you're still on the line.
Yeah, man.
Loved it and feel better. Had a great dinner with you, John. Thank you for cooking.
Of course.
Great conversation with you, Michael. So this was, as all 11 have been, really, really fun. And let's keep doing it.
Conversations is produced and mixed by Dylan Seals. The Conversations theme was performed and recorded by the Hazelrigg brothers.